Let's have us talk about Oregon's defensive coordinator. Mailbag is wide open, very available. So is Spencer's scale of agreement. You send in a take. I give you 1 to 10 where I stand on my scale of agreement there. So this question came from Skirt Mayo. How would you rate Tosh Lupoi's tenure at Oregon? And is he the guy in the long term if he doesn't leave? I don't think he's leaving. I've talked several times just in the last couple of weeks about coaches that could not be on Oregon staff within the next couple of years. Will Stein and Chris Hampton, and frankly, I think Hampton could be first. Those two guys are top of the list. I don't think Tosh is really that high. And I think Tosh Lupoi is clearly a good defensive coordinator. The Ducks defense has made some serious strides that I'll get to in a moment in the last couple of years. The last defensive coordinator job he had, though, didn't exactly end very well. And so he's a guy that has always been an elite recruiter, and that hasn't changed. We've seen that since he got to the Ducks. But after being the defensive coordinator in 2018 for Alabama, he went to the NFL where he's a defensive line coach. Like that's a position that he knows the best, and that's also a position he recruits incredibly well. We've seen that with Oregon's recruiting classes over the last couple of cycles. But for Lupoi, I don't think that if he wanted to leave Oregon, I never see his name pop up on head coaching vacancy lists, which those names don't get there by accident. They're either seriously being considered or an agent wants to put them there because he knows somebody in the media space, or both. Tosh Lupoi's name never pops up. And the names that do pop up don't do so by accident. Names also don't pop up not by accident. Like, I don't think he's someone that wants to be a head coach. He hasn't been in his career. I don't think that's suddenly something that he... Like, some guys are just... Okay, I come across a lot of coaches in the college sports space, and some of them don't want to be head coaches. I know several. I know several personally who have the resume to try to be a head coach somewhere, and I've asked them, well, would you consider that? No, I don't want to do that. Some guys are good. You know what? I'm a number two sort of guy. I'm a coordinator. I'm a coach. I'm a position. Gary Campbell made a career at Oregon. He was there for 30 years, or I think it was longer than that, as the running backs coach. I'm sure he got calls to be an offensive coordinator somewhere. Some guys, I got a good living. I like my job. I coach running backs. It's fun. So not everyone is that ambitious. So I don't think that he would leave. I think the only way Tosh Lupoi winds up not being Oregon's defensive coordinator one day is if Dan Lanning decides it's time to make a change. I don't think that time is anywhere close to coming. Now, in 2022, I was pretty critical here on the show of Lanning and Lupoi because though I understood it was year one and you didn't expect that Oregon's defense would max out its potential with those two guys in charge compared to, what they had last year or even in 2023, didn't have all their guys in there. First time Lanning was a head coach, all that. The defense should have been better. Dan Lanning was the defensive coordinator for the national champion Georgia Bulldogs. Tosh Lupoi's got a long resume, has been around. The defense in 2022 should have been better. I think we can look back now and say the personnel was definitely way off. Not at every position. You had Christian Gonzalez in there, first round pick at corner. But on the defensive line in particular, they weren't good enough. They generated, I think it was their fewest sacks in like over 2 decades. And of course, last year, within a couple of seasons, Oregon's defensive line, I described, and I think they lived up to the billing, as the best since 2014. Maybe the best that I've seen from the Ducks in my lifetime. I mean, 3 guys drafted in the first 3 rounds, including a first rounder in Derek Harmon. Pretty darn good. So, that has been an area where I think you would give Tosh Lupoi an A, is improving that particular unit. Overall in the defense, remember, I'm a tough grader. I'm a tough grade. When I grade a position group, when I grade a player, I'm not handing out A's and B's like you see in high school and college nowadays. It's pretty much, it's a joke. It's a joke. I can speak as someone that went to both high school and college. It's way too easy to get an A. Way too easy. I give Tosh Lupoi a B- to assess his tenure overall. And certainly, I think he's well entrenched onto Oregon staff, and I don't think Dan Lanning is making any sort of plan to move on from him at defense coordinator. I think early on, he got a good deal of more criticism from Duck fans writ large. I think that was kind of deserved because I thought the defense was underperforming, but it has gotten materially better. They've allowed fewer points per game in each of the last 2 seasons than they did the year before. That's progress. And that's just one example of a stat that's backing up the eye test. Oregon just had the Big Ten leader in the regular season in sacks compared to their first year when getting pressure on the quarterback was a major struggle. And that's somebody, Mateo Uyunglele is, of course, who I'm talking about. That's somebody who Oregon recruited and developed and is now probably going to be a first-round pick. That's the sort of thing that you want to see from a defense coordinator in addition to the results on the field. Now, the reason I have the grade, and I'm curious to hear what you guys all say, as low as a B minus, is the big game performance hasn't been there. And that's the only thing that's missing, but that's a pretty big thing to be missing for an entire side of the ball. You can't look at the offense in the last couple of years, and in Oregon's, aside from the Rose Bowl where everything was bad, you can't look at those games that Oregon has lost, well, the Rose Bowl and Georgia, which was game 1, and I think we can all write that one off as like, yeah, that was a difficult spot to be in there. The offense hasn't been the problem. You go back to Oregon State and Washington 2022, offense not the problem. Washington twice in 2023, offense not the problem. Ohio State, yep, they got outcoached. Just staff-wide, across the board, Oregon got outcoached. All right, happens. The Ohio State staff was really veteran and really, really good. But that's the next step. I think Tosh has been good. You'd have to give the recruiting a significantly higher grade, I think, than the overall on-field performance. That's what I expected when Lanning brought him on as Oregon's defense coordinator. I think those two are pretty tight. I don't think unless the defense really starts to fall off in the next couple of years, like I'm talking multiple years of bad results and regressing stats, unless that happens, I don't think Tosh is going anywhere as DC. So I think he's been about what I expected him to be when he was hired. He's not a scheme guru. He is a recruiter first and foremost, and I think he's recruited really well, retained talent well, production on the field's been good, and the defensive results have been better. But now when Oregon plays their biggest games of the year, defense has got to be better. That's unquestionably, I think, a really fair criticism to levy against Coach Lupoi. So this question came in from MTV Thrash 44. I don't know where you guys come up with these names, but hey, I like the question. So, question that pertains for down the road, but what do you think the chances of Achilles Smith Jr. taking over for Dante Moore in the next year or two once Moore leaves for the draft? I thought he looked the best at the spring game and has a high ceiling. Ceiling is very high. I mean, Smith is a big kid, man, and he's got a big arm. He looked poised. I was impressed. I'm with you. I thought he did some nice things, pocket mobility. He's got a little, like, he looks like Justin Herbert a little bit out there. Nobody has Herbert's arm. And, I mean, Herbert's arm begs the question how he was a 3-star recruit. I think Oregon was like his only major FBS offer. One of them coming out of high school is like Oregon and Montana. Like, guys, that was a swing and a miss. But Oregon also got on him, I think, a little bit earlier because he grew up a Duck and in Sheldon High School and whatnot. But still, like, that guy probably should have been a 5-star quarterback or at least 4-star coming out of high school. Anyway, Achilles Smith taking over. Look, this is higher. I'll apply this to Spencer's scale of agreement. This is higher than you might think. The most likely scenario where this comes to pass, in my view, is Dante Moore goes to the NFL draft, but Austin Novosad has already transferred. Those two things could 100% happen. Because if Novosad goes through this season, Dante Moore stays healthy, which is what we all really want, and he has to hit the early transfer portal window in December, then all of a sudden, we might not know about Dante Moore's NFL decision for a couple more months, and if he decides to go to the draft, well, Achilles Smith Jr., you are the most likely guy to be the Oregon quarterback that's presently on the roster. Would he be ready to play at that point in time? That's, of course, up to the coaching staff. But next year or two. I mean, when you put the 2 in there, I'm putting this at a 6.5. Because, I mean, 2027, I'd probably say Akili Smith Jr. is the favorite to be the Oregon starting quarterback, which is an awesome thing to think about. I'm sure it'll make plenty of you Oregon fans out there feel just a little bit old, maybe a little bit more than that, because you watched his dad play. I did not. I know he was awesome, but I'm sure for my dad and plenty of you guys out there as well, or your dads, for my younger audience out there, I'm sure they'll all look at it the same way. Like, man, I feel like I was just watching his dad play Oregon football. Now all of a sudden he's got his son starting a quarterback. But I mean, dude's got all the tools. Like any quarterback coming out of high school, I'm sure he's a little bit raw and has things to work on. Impressed in the spring game, though. More poise than a lot of true freshmen have. And physically, he's there. He's just got the traits to be an elite guy at that spot. He's just got to acclimate to the college game like any college quarterback does. So, yeah, that would be the scenario where he starts next year at quarterback for the Ducks. Novosad leaves in the winter portal. Dante Moore pops, decides I'm going to the NFL draft. Then, yeah, Akili Smith would probably be the guy. But 27, I'd slot him in as the favorite right about now.